Real life is the most toxic multiplayer server ever created. You can't disconnect the trolls, but you can mute them. Welcome to the Stoic Guide to Mastering Your Mental Server. Welcome back to Existential Glitch. Whenever we log into social media, step into the office, or simply walk down the street, we are essentially joining a massive, unmoderated public server. And just like any public, multiplayer game, there is one thing you can absolutely guarantee: you are going to encounter trolls, haters, and toxic players. It is inevitable. Long before the internet existed, the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should remember the nature of the activity we are engaging in. In his time, he used the analogy of the Roman public bathhouse, which was basically the ancient equivalent of a crowded online lobby. He reminded his students that if you go to the bathhouse, you must expect that people will be splashing water, pushing each other, using abusive language, and trying to steal your belongings. If you expect this toxicity as a default feature of the server, you won't be caught off guard. He advised that you should tell yourself that you want to participate in the activity, but you also want to keep your mind in a state that is conformable to nature. In other words, you want to play the game without letting the trolls ruin your playthrough. Today, we are going to look at the Stoic Guide to muting these real-life trolls. The main objective of a troll is to ruin your inner peace, or in gamer terms, to spike your ping and make you lag with anger. They want you to lose control. But the core mechanic of Stoicism is understanding the difference between your keyboard and theirs. Epictetus stated that some things are within our power, like our opinions, motivations, and desires, while things like our property, our reputation, and the actions of others are not within our power. You cannot control what a toxic person types in the chat, how they drive on the highway, or what rumors they spread about you in the office. Their actions are completely outside of your sphere of choice. When we attach our well-being to how other people behave, we are handing them the controller to our own emotions. If you demand that the world and everyone in it should be nice to you, you are setting yourself up for endless frustration. Instead, your only focus should be on your own gameplay. By realizing that their toxic behavior is a reflection of their own corrupted code and has nothing to do with your stats, you instantly take away their power. You press the ultimate mental mute button. But what happens when the troll targets you directly? What happens when they start spamming insults in your DMs or mocking you in real life? The Stoic philosopher Seneca analyzed the nature of insults and realized that getting offended is a choice. Seneca noticed that the wise man is entirely invulnerable to injuries, comparing insults thrown at a wise man to darts shot at the heavens that never reach the gods and simply fall back to the ground. He proposed a brilliant, logical strategy for handling trash talk. Seneca asked what insult there is if someone makes a joke about your bald head, the weakness of your eyes, or your thin legs, because they are just stating what everyone already sees. If the insult is actually the truth, why should you be offended by the truth? On the other hand, if the insult is complete nonsense and objectively false, the person doing the injustice is the one who should blush and feel ashamed, not you. Either way, the insult has zero actual damage output. By analyzing the troll's attack with pure logic, you realize their words are just empty pixels on a screen. If there was anyone who dealt with a highly toxic server, it was the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. As the leader of the empire, he had to deal with difficult, ungrateful, and arrogant people every single day. but he didn't let their aggro ruin his daily quests. He mentally prepared himself in his pre-game lobby every morning. He wrote in his journal that if someone despises him, that is their problem. His only concern is not to do or say anything despicable himself. He understood that the world is populated by people who act blindly out of ignorance. Like poorly coded NPCs, you cannot demand that the entire human race be inoffensive, because that is simply impossible. The tranquility you seek comes when you stop caring about what they say, think, or do, and focus only on your own actions. Marcus Aurelius advises us not to be distracted by their darkness, but to run straight for the finish line without swerving. Let the trolls scream whatever they want. It should never stop you from keeping your mind calm and making good use of whatever happens. It is one thing to mute a random stranger on the internet, but what do you do when the toxic player is in your own guild? What happens when it is your coworker, your sibling, or a longtime friend? It is incredibly painful when the toxicity comes from your own team. Epictetus taught a valuable mechanic for this exact situation. He said that everything has two handles, one by which it can be carried, and one by which it cannot. If your brother or teammate acts unfairly, do not grasp the situation by the handle of his unfairness, because that handle will break and you cannot carry the burden that way. Instead, grasp it by the other handle, that he is your brother, that you were raised together, or that you are teammates. Instead of endlessly analyzing what they do wrong, you must analyze how you can keep your own attitude calm. You adjust your expectations. You realize that you are not entitled to a good or fair brother. You are only naturally entitled to a brother. By changing the handle you use to lift the problem, you mute the emotional damage their toxicity causes you. Sometimes, the people around us aren't evil. They are just incredibly annoying. Think of the person spamming the voice chat, breathing heavily into the mic, or the coworker who lacks basic social awareness. Marcus Aurelius gave a surprisingly funny but practical piece of advice regarding this. He advised himself not to be irritated by people's bad breath or body odor, noting that with that specific mouth and those specific armpits, they are biologically bound to produce that exact smell. He suggested that instead of getting angry, you should use your logic to awaken their logic. Tell them the issue calmly. If they listen, the prodanger. And if they don't listen, well, getting angry won't make them smell any better. The Roman philosopher Seneca firmly believed that anger is never useful and is essentially a form of temporary madness. Modern psychology agrees. Venting anger is like using gasoline to extinguish a fire. It only feeds the flames and makes things worse. So, if logic fails, just mute them in your mind. Do not let their poor stats ruin your game. Muting people mentally is a superpower, but it does not mean you have to stay trapped in a lobby that is actively destroying your health. There is a huge difference between building emotional fortitude and enduring unnecessary abuse. Epictetus used a brilliant analogy for this, the simile of the smoky house. He stated that if someone makes a fire and there is a moderate amount of smoke in the house, he will stay and endure it. But if there is too much smoke, he will simply go outside. You are never forced to stay in an environment that is suffocating you. If the toxicity in your workplace, your relationship, or your social circle reaches unbearable levels, you have every right to disconnect from the server. Walking away is often misunderstood as weakness or giving up, but in reality, walking away in itself is an act of power because it clearly signals your capacity to thrive, independently of what the other party provides. If the server is beyond repair, hit Alt plus F4 and find a better lobby with fresh air. Ultimately, the goal of Stoicism is not to defeat the trolls, but to make sure their toxicity doesn't infect your code. It is tempting to want to seek revenge, to troll the trolls, to give them a taste of their own medicine. But Epictetus warned against this. He reasoned that if someone injures themselves by doing wrong, why should we also injure our own character by doing wrong to them? This troll is already chaotic. Miserable place. Quel level? Let them rage in the chat. Let them scream into the void. You are busy leveling up in real life, focusing on your main quest, and maintaining a high-tier mental state. You survive the multiplayer game of life by keeping your own gameplay virtuous and ignoring the rest. This has been Existential Glitch. If you are ready to upgrade your mindset and patch the bugs in your daily life, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a comment down below. Until next time, keep your ping low and your standards high. GG, well played.